Hello, good evening and EcoBoost ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 4 of the middle of the EcoBoost Racing League EcoBoost Championship for 2026 as brought to you on the premier EcoBoosting platform known as iEcoBoost. And well, without further ado, we are here today to see the conclusion of the first half of our EcoBoosting campaign. That's right, we've made our way to the Sebring International Raceway, soon to be renamed the EcoBoost International EcoBoosting Way, and indeed what a circuit it is. Located in the EcoBoosting state of EcoBoost, it is one of those circuits for our drivers where it's going to be rough, rugged and full of EcoBoost, and indeed it has stood the test of time being one of the oldest circuits in the country of EcoBoost. But as our drivers take to it, who exactly is going to emerge from the first half of the season as our leaders in the EcoBoosting Championship and also take home the first of our EcoBoost Cups? That's exactly what we're here to find out today as we get ready for some EcoBoosting action. In terms of our schedule for today in this post-round broadcast, as we can see, our EcoBoosting schedule is as follows. Times in EcoBoosting Daylight Time EBDT. In approximately what will be about 9 minutes time, we're making our way onto the grid, and it will be for 60 minutes of EcoBoosting that will be getting underway at 8:10. In the content booth, you have myself. My name is EcoBoost, or Mr. EcoBoost, I should say, also known as Paul EcoBoost, and I shall be your EcoBooster all the way through the day, from start to finish. Hold up a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting told we're being called off the air. Well, they didn't like the fact that we're here to do EcoBoosting, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise about this. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. And remember, always EcoBoost. EcoBoost. Are we back on? Oh, we are. Oh, whoops. Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Don't know what came over us for that brief segment. We do apologise. There seemed to be some sort of technical issue, something about EcoBoost to the extreme. Well, without further ado, let's try that again, shall we? Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the Middle of the Pack Racing League's GTE League for 2026, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. Today marks round number 4 of the championship campaign, and we have made our way to the US state of Florida for the Sebring International Raceway. A stalwart of American racing, it's one of the most rough and rugged circuits as they come around the globe. Not necessarily for its variety of elevation changes, it's one of the flattest circuits in the world, being situated on the site of a former Army Air Base, but the fact that it has a wide multitude and array of corners. 17 of them in total, sweepers, hairpins and even a chicane, and throw into the mix many a long straight and also plenty of road surface changes, with the old concrete segments of the runways being merged together with an absolute splendid array of asphalt and tarmac. It is one of those circuits where suspension travel is key, and being able to set the car right for success is just simple to being able to embrace the bumps and also be consistent through the corners. But who exactly will get that combination right today to emerge on the other side as our US Cup champions and indeed go into the second half of the season with momentum on their side? Well, that's what we're here to find out in this post-round broadcast from circuit side. Indeed, the racing action you are tuning into today is not live. It occurred on Wednesday the 8th of April. In 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today, this fine Saturday, the 18th of April, and therefore we do not know who is going to be your winner in the race until we get to the finish line, and with no qualifying session expected, we'll bring you up to speed on exactly how we're going to be setting the grid and the rules and regulations very shortly. In the content booth, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action throughout the entirety of the day, and you're catching all the racing action of this series, of course, on the one only place on YouTube you can. That's at youtube.com, and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP. And why not subscribe today to stay up to date with all the latest racing. In terms of our schedule, times in Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, or Universal Coordinate Time, -4. And as we can see, in approximately what will be around about 5 minutes time, we make our way to the grid for our 60-minute feature race. No qualifying expected at 8:10. We'll be going racing, and we'll bring you up to speed on exactly how that grid's going to be set immediately. But as we come into this round, let's give you a quick recap of how the standings stand and the story coming into it after what was definitely an absolutely brilliant previous round in round number 3 of the championship. And so, as we can see, we have made a way across the US of A. We started in Road Atlanta, made a way to Watkins Glen, and then settled back to Road America. And in the US state of Wisconsin, back on the 25th of March, what exactly went down there? Well, in terms of our winners from the previous round, pro and overall, it was Matthew Morhardt. We started 5th, qualifying the best part of 8/10 of the pole time set by Ryan Otis. However, in the race, well, it was Otis and Best, as in none other than Matt Best, who really did have a difficult start to the race. They both went off on the opening corner of the open lap, and immediately Matthew Morhardt moved into third and spent most of his first stint closely following the leaders of Edwin Offray and also Best. But as the two drivers went onwards, it definitely was an opportunity for none other than our man of Morhardt to try and take the lead, and he did so, taking it from Edwin Offray on lap number 12 and coming out just ahead when he saw the pit stops come to the conclusion. And well, Offray stayed right behind Morhardt for the majority of the final stint of the race. However, in the end, we did see what was a little bit of an altercation between the two of them, and well, it led to Matthew Morhardt bringing on home the win, and Edwin Offray unfortunately having a black flag driver penalty due to contact, and that was how the race was settled. And the first win for Matthew Morhardt on his debut to the grid. Meanwhile, for Ryan Otis, it was a debut that definitely was an interesting one, although unfortunately he was only able to settle for the podium and not quite take the victory. But that was in pro and overall. Meanwhile, in the prime class, well, it was Tom Bryce who took class pole, 9th overall, ahead of Donald Seapeck, and ran away with things early on in the race, and he never quite looked back, even though Jermaine Warren had an absolute monster start by comparison. But it really was Tom Bryce's race to lose, and in the end he was able to keep it together and come on home with a comfortable class win of 34 seconds. But we come into this round at Sebring. It's our feature race round. All our sprints for the US Cup are complete, and we will be crowning our US Cup champions after this race, and we'll do it live on the broadcast today, so that way you're brought up to speed with who exactly is going to be leading the way going into our second half of the season, which is the Euro Cup, beginning on the 22nd of April at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, a celebration of European circuits as we bring our celebration of American circuits to a close this round. But coming into this round, who exactly is leading the way in the standings? Well, here we can see after round number 3 is none other than James Logsdon on the left-hand side of your table, who leads currently there on 139 points, 11 ahead of Chad Henson in the pro class. And right now, despite the fact he only finished third last time at Road America, well, third was all he needed to be able to extend his championship lead, given the way the race had played out. And therefore, right now, the pressure is on the rest of the field to try and find a way to slow down Logsdon before he takes the US Cup crown. But an 11-point gap, that may not be easy. And Chad Henson right now, 14 points over Shahi Zahir, is looking safe for the runner-up spot. And Shahi Zahir, meanwhile, has got all the pressure on him because only 4 points behind is Taylor Bookout. And there's a sizable gap of the best part of 28 points back to Matt Best in 5th. Gabriel Ferreira sits 6th, 2 points further adrift, and it's a further 8 to Eric Lagaye, with Julian Jones, Blake Phillips, and Jason Landry completing your top 10. And it's Matthew Morhardt ahead of Ryan Otis, with Edwin Offray and David Addy completing the pro standings after 3 rounds. And so the prime category, we've got a few less drivers there, but let's not forget about them. Don Seapeck leads the way currently, alongside Jermaine Warren. Indeed, they're absolutely tied on points. They are equal, and right now it's going to come down to who gets the best result today. We couldn't ask for a better decider with regards to our prime US Cup. Meanwhile, Tom Bryce, a further 9 points behind. We could theoretically provide a bit of a spoiler there to the top 2. He could be kingmaker as well, should he be able to lead the way versus his rivals. So therefore, he may have a little bit of control over this one, although we keep it in theory the fact that right now, after his victory at Road America, he'll be going for gold, and he won't be looking for anything else. You never know, he could become your US Cup champion. Mark Senegal's a third point behind him. And after an impressive start to the season, he has fallen by the wayside to a degree, but he'll be looking to bounce back as best he possibly can, although he's not here today from what I understand. So therefore, we've only got the grand total of 4 prime drivers on the grid, and therefore it may be a little bit of a lonely race for our prime drivers, but a prime opportunity for Tom Bryce, Don Seapeck, Jermaine Warren, and Glenn Bratton all to go for big points. Speaking of Glenn Bratton, he's in 5th there, only a further point adrift, so it really is 2 points between 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then we do have Roger Ganesh, Carl Peterson, and Bill DaCosta completing your prime championship standings. But coming to our circuit then for today, because we've got the story of the last round, we've got ourselves up to speed with the points, we just need to talk about our circuit for today, and it's the Sebring International Raceway, and we're racing at its EcoBoost. Oh goodness me, that keeps coming up. I'm very sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's worse than wind and swearing. We're racing at its international layout, I should say, located near the city of Sebring, in the Highlands County of the US state of Florida. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track mats contained within it. 17 corners and 3.74 miles in length, and this is a staple of international International Racing. It is, of course, home to the 12 Hours of Sebring that precedes the 24 Hours of Le Mans each and every year. And as we can see, many of the corners around here, household names, whether it be Genderby and Bend at turn 1, the long left-hand sweeper, or the run in towards the very condensed section of turns 2, 3, 4, and 5, a very tight, twiddly section of corners. Then coming on towards Big Bend at turn number 6, it's going to be flat out all the way towards the hairpin at turn number 7, while the lowest speed corners and hard on the brakes still go, while making the way out to Fangio Bend in celebration of the Argentine driver, and through the right to the left, it'll then be up to Cunningham at turn number 10. A sharp 90-degree right-hander gives way to a flying left-hander of Collier, where it's all about nailing a late apex, and get your line right, you'll be going into Tower Bend at turn 13 full speed, until you need to come hard on the brakes on a 90-degree right-hander. Thanks now to that, it's then on to the back section, making your way back to the runways of old, as the drivers will transition back into the concrete at Bishop Bend at turn 14, and then they'll make their way into turn 15, the right-hander that gives way to Le Mans Bend at turn number 16, a very tricky right-hander there, where they come off the throttle, and then go back onto it, and they need to nail their exit, because they'll be carrying all the speed down the Ormond Straight, flat out, where they get to Sunset Bend. The infamous corner of Sebring, whereby when the sun is setting, it'll be in the eyes of our drivers, but the sun has been setting in the background, and therefore it does mean we're going into night time, we do go racing, and that sweeping right-hander will definitely offer plenty of overtaking opportunities, but also plenty of thrills and spills with it. But a quick reminder of our rules, because we are in a feature race round today. Setup-wise, we continue the same format as before. Drivers are running a fixed setup right by the middle of the pack Racing League, and fuel loads are restricted to 50%. But in our 60-minute feature race, the grid order shall be a class reverse grid based on the latest Drivers' Championship standings, and the classes shall start in the order of Pro, then Pro-Am. So, just put that in layman's terms. We put all the pros at the front of the field, but we invert them based on where they sit in the Drivers' Championship standings coming into the round, and then we take the Pro-Ams and do exactly the same. So therefore, our Championship leaders, they've got all the hard work to do, particularly when you do look to James Logsdon in Pro, and also the combination pair of Donald Seepet and Jermaine Warren in Pro-Am. Now the race shall start via a rolling start, as is an addition of GTE Racing, particularly in the middle of the pack GTE League, and each driver has 2 faster pairs available should they need to use them at any point, but we may also see a trip to the pit lane if a driver picks up 10 or more instant points, because it will be a naughty drive-through penalty being awarded. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side, because the practice session is complete, the circuit has fallen silent, and it's time to make our way to the grid for our one and only race here for round number 4 of the GTE League. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, well, this is how they are going to line up for our one and only eco-boosting session. It is going to be on pole position, Julian Jones. That will be pro and overall, and he'll be joined on the front row by Taylor Bookout for Team Bearpo. We then will have Shahi Zaher starting in 3rd place, the privateer ahead of James Logsdon, with Eric Lagai there in 5th place ahead. In fact, I'm not quite sure if these standings are correct. Let's just double check that before we progress any further. And in fact, yes, they are correct. My apologies there. Things. We just wait to double check that. But we will see Eric Lagai starting in 5th place there, the privateer ahead of Gabriel Ferrero, and it will be Matt Best starting in 7th place, the Texas Speed Sim Racing ahead of Matthew Morhardt, with Chad Henson and Ryan Otis completing your top 10. So it does seem as though, by the looks of things, we may not quite be having the fully inverted grids that we promised you, so we do apologise about that, ladies and gentlemen. And then we do see behind from the first 10 lines of the grid, well, we're going a little bit further down, and we will be seeing starting in 11th place, the head of our Pro-Ams, it'll be Glenn Bratton ahead of Donald Seepek, with Tom Bryce and Jermaine Warren completing your starting order. And that's 4 Pro-Ams there at the very back, with the middle pack racing driver having it all to do from the very back of the field, and he'll know it's going to be hard graft that awaits him. But it does look as though the formation lap's about to get underway, although unfortunately it does seem as though there's a little bit of a issue with Glenn Bratton's car, so we will not be seeing him go onto the formation lap, but hopefully we'll see him make his way out there when we do go green flag racing, as always we've already lost the car that was due to start, but unfortunately it does seem as though we might be down to 13 runners. But formation lap underway, and I say all head on around. Well, what can we expect here today? Well, it's going to be about consistency. That's going to be absolutely critical and key. And Bookout and Zaher there at the front of the field, they have one great opportunity in the fact they don't have to worry about cars around them. They'll be feeling a little bit safer, and well, understandably that safety is in the fact they don't have to worry about the dirty air off the car in front, and well, it's all going to be about who gets the best run in towards turn 1 between them. But this field coming up through, it's full formation lap here. So you do have a prime opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. If you do need a brief moment to go grab yourself a quick top up of liquid refreshment, or certainly go grab yourself a snack if you need to top up your popcorn, this is the prime chance to do so, because you're not going to get many more chances. Meanwhile, looking further back, Tom Bryce here as we ride on board with the privateer in the 272. He knows that after his win last time out, he really could be kingmaker. And remembering the fact that with the Prams starting at the very back of the field and points being scored based on overall finishing position for all classes, although the Prams do also pick up bonus points for being on their podium, 3 for first, 2 for second and 1 for third. If you're a Pram driver, you want the best possible start here, particularly if you're Tom Bryce, because if he's able to get ahead of a few pros and his rivals, Donald Sepek and Jermaine Warren, are not able to by comparison, well, the American driver may just be able to steal away that Pro-Am US Cup crown. But it's going to be easier said than done as he weaves his way between the apexes, and well, as he does so, he's still got the best part of 2/3 of his formation lap to get himself all warmed up. Brakes will need as much temperature as possible. Remember, these GTEs have no ABS on them, so therefore you need to warm those brakes up without locking them up, and also you need to try and heat the tyres to have the best possible run through the opening bends. But expect a few lockups, particularly when we're in night time, so it's going to be a bit of a cooler day here today, and we get set to go. And after our brilliant night race at Watkins Glen only a few weeks ago, we've got nighttime conditions here at Sebring, albeit there is a little bit more ambient lighting compared to Watkins Glen by comparison, because of course this circuit home to the 12 Hours of Sebring. I've raced in my GT3 and GTP category cars on an annual basis, and therefore there has to be a bit more ambient lighting by comparison. Although to be fair, it's not mandated, I do believe, the ambient lighting. Night races can be fully night races if desired, but there's always a little bit of ambient lighting out there just to ensure that spectators are able to see the cars beyond the headlights, and also pit crews and teams, and even the drivers do have a little bit of lighting to work with. But now making their way back down to the final stretch, the final third of lap, which sees them transition back onto the runway surfaces, so therefore back onto the old concrete seams. There we do see James Logsdon, championship leader in Pro, and the Team Bear Poke driver right now, knowing that he's got a couple of cars between him and an opportunity to lead this race, and that's exactly what he'll want. He'll want to win this one in order to make sure he is your US Cup Pro champion going into the second half of the season. But remember, there's prizes for the Cup champions, there's also prizes for the overall champions at the end of the season, so there's plenty to play for, as Logsdon there doing some quite aggressive tyre warming right at the end down the Auburn straight, getting his last little bit of tyre temperature in. And good news, Glenn Bratton's car has now made its way into the pit lane, and therefore it does mean, or out its pit box we should say, so we should be seeing him going, although we do seem to have lost Julian Jones along the way. I think a technical issues occurred for the family machine, so in fact we have lost our EcoBoost car. That's not good news. Well, unfortunately, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, this race may have to be cancelled if we don't have EcoBoost. Joking aside, we're almost ready to go, and it's over to Taylor Bookout to take us green for a grand total of 60 minutes of racing action here at Sebring International Raceway. As he builds up speed, it's lights out and away we go for 60 minutes of racing action for our US Cup finale as they roar the way down towards turn of 1. As all of our drivers do, it's a good start there from Shahi Zahair. He's going to try and make the move, but he can't quite make it. Taylor Bookout goes around the outside. James Logsdon's around the outside. Car sides as Shahi Zahair. Oh, goodness me! And that's Gabriel Ferrero being collected there in the M&M's Corvette. Meanwhile, as they all come up in towards turn number 3, we'll side by side Matt Best and Eric Lagai. Lagai had a really good start to this race. He went on the attack up the inside in the Rexy machine and almost stole the lead from everybody. A little bit of oversteer there as he comes at the corner. Oh, goodness me! And that's Matt Best getting absolutely sent sideways there. And I'm not sure there was contact to where he was turned, but either way, well, he's definitely turned himself in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, coming back towards the very front of the field, and right now, Bookout and Lagai fighting side by side as James Logsdon has survived all the chaos and carnage and has been able to squeeze his way ahead. So it's Logsdon, the US Cup champion leader, in to lead this race, and Taylor Bookout and Eric Lagai are behind at the moment, fighting with Chad Henson trying to get involved as they make their way up in towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes, we can see that Chad Henson having to squeeze off Ryan Otis, but Otis there gets on the inside and says, "You can't shut the door on me, sir." And as they make their way on through Tower Bend, or on towards Tower Bend, I should say. Oh, they're sideways. Hold on, is that Logsdon? It's Logsdon. He loses it coming through Collier, and suddenly he drops all the way to the back of the field. You couldn't make this up. It's the open lap, and there's drama all over it right now. And well, Eric the guy takes the lead this race. Ryan Otis looks to go on the attack, trying to make amends to what happened last time out at Road America. But as they come in towards the first part of Le Mans, Otis on the inside here. He's right now crusading his way up the order, and the number 3 car takes the lead. But will it be for long here, given the fact the lead seems to have been a bit of a poison chalice overall in Pro, where anyone that could all chop and change. Meanwhile, whilst we've been focusing on what's happening in the front, what's happening in Pro-Am? Well, Bryce, Sepek and Warren, they're all together still. The trio joined at the hip. Albeit here comes Donald Sepek looking for a move. He wants this win. He wants to make sure that he becomes the US Cup Pro-Am champion. Albeit look at the inside of Bryce right now, and Bryce there going defensive on the outside. Sounds a little bit odd, and the fact he gives the door open, but you can see there the fact that Bryce right now have a much tighter exit line as they roar the way back into the start finish straight. But coming on down onto one lap, it is Otis who leads ahead of Lagai, followed by Henson, and your top three all together there within 4 attempts. As Eric Lagai goes defensive again, the Rexy machine keeping Henson behind. Matthew Morhardt sits in full place. A good start for him and making progress ahead of Don Sepek, your prime leader in 5th. There we do have Tom Bryce and Jermaine Warren completing the top 3 of prime, just behind through to 7th place. And it's James Logsdon on a bit of a recovery drive after his sideways moment, going on through Collier Bend only moments ago. And it's Matt Best and Shahi Zaher completing that top 10. We have Taylor Bookout right now having to recover the best part of 40 seconds behind after his huge moment in the opening lap. We have got Julian Jones out there. There you can see the Ford GT, the EcoBoost machine making its way around for family. And we'll Glenn Bratton a little bit further back perhaps as they come on. But I do believe Julian Jones now classified a lap down, which is not going to help him whatsoever. But as we do look there to Matthew Morhardt, making a move on Chad Henson for 3rd place. Well, they come past our static camera there, and well, the fighting continues. They come down in towards Cunningham Bend. I think things are going to stay static there. As meanwhile, James Logsdon tucks at the inside. Jermaine Warren steals the place off the Corvette driver, and right now, all Jermaine Warren is Corvette C8R Z6 GTE. We'll be hoping that perhaps he's going to be able to find a way in at the end later on, chasing down Bryce and Sepek. But strategy is going to be a critical part here. We do normally see pit stops even in our 45-minute sprint races, but given the fact we've got an extra 15 minutes of racing, well, understandably now drivers will definitely need to be on their best behaviour and be thinking about fuel saving, tyre management, add it all together, because it all becomes incredibly important. Although tyre-wise, we're not expecting any tyre changes, because remember, we are racing based on... hold up a second, and that's holding the phone, because that's Eric Lagai going very sideways there through Le Mans. That's not the way you do it. And well, as he brings himself back onto the road, he's able to bring himself back on via the grass, because everyone will be taking the racing line. Then he falls all the way to the back. I don't believe the number 6 driver, who was right towards the front, battling for the lead. And suddenly it slipped out of his hands, as Ryan Otis right now really has no pressure on him, other than the pressure he puts on himself. Hold up, we've had another incident. Matthew Morhardt. Well, if Otis has one go wrong, it happens to Morhardt as well. These two definitely seem destined for a little bit of drama together. And right now, as he gets it all wrong, well, our time tower's being shuffled around. Not quite sure what's going on at the moment. I'm sure it will rectify itself shortly. I think there might be a bit of a timing error as Eric Lagai comes across the timing line, and as he does so, well, he's listed as dropping to 11th place, but I don't quite believe that's accurate. What I do believe is that your lead at the moment is Ryan Otis there, and I think Matthew Morhardt, who is towed to the pits, may have just glitched out the time tower, but don't worry, it will fix itself eventually, ladies and gentlemen, and there it goes, already fixing itself up quite quickly. Indeed, there's so much drama that not even our broadcast overlay can keep up with it, but that's what happens in the Millpack Racing League. If it's going to go crazy, it definitely will be turning up to 11, as Spinal Tap would say. But as we do have James Logsdon trying to continue his recovery drive, now all over the back of Tom Bryce. And where it does seem as though number 42 driver here for Team Bearpo, he's not been upset or dismayed by what happened earlier on. Indeed, that's the thing about Logsdon. It's not about how he starts the race, it's about how he ends it. He always aims to end the race on an ultimate high. Going down in towards the next braking zone here. Well, the game now will be to follow the leader and just see if he can gradually pick his way past Bryce. The 2 prime drivers in front of him will also have their own battle they'll be enjoying. And Don Sepek, of course, in the BMW M8, a very different car compared to all the Porsches it's surrounded by. More about the straight line speed, run, cornering ability. And Logsdon looking to the outside. They're coming into Bishop Bend. He's going to be squeezed a little bit as he comes on in, but he's going to believe he can go for this move. And in the end, well, he'll be running door to door versus the Lazy Boy machine, but he won't quite get that move there. And Tom Bryce here proving to be a bit of thorn in the side of Logsdon, as the American driver now tries to open up as much of Le Mans Bend as possible, using that run-off area on the left-hand side. They're legally allowed to do it, although the more you run out wide there, the harder the corner becomes, to a point there is a sweet spot for how far you cut over to the left. And the reason for that is, keep in mind you are coming out of a left-hand kink, and then continue to push the car to left, and then suddenly having to snap it to the right. And that means momentum change or weight transfer becomes an absolutely abhorrent factor. And well, when you're running a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, the rear of the car is essentially a pendulum that swings around, with all the weight of the car being concentrated behind the driver. So get it wrong there, and suddenly the rear will come around very loosely. And that may have been the contributing factor to what happened to Eric Lagai at the corner a few laps earlier. We'll get a replay of that very soon. Meanwhile, Matt Best, well, he definitely had a difficult start to the race, being ejected out at turn number 5 before he got to Big Bend. And well, he was so far ejected off the road, he was almost censored by the transfer bridge. And as we do see our number 11 try now trying to carry his way back onwards, well, he's all over the back of Julian Jones. We do have confirmation, has now made his way back onto lead lap. So I think there was a bit of a timing glitch there. He disappeared, he reappeared, but he's still in this race. So the family machine, the Ford GTE, is definitely racing on the lead lap as well. And well, that's good news there. So Julian Jones still in this one and looking to try and show what the Ford can do. And, well, we have no bias here, but EcoBoost should win this race at all times, ladies and gents, and we all know that. But as he heads onwards, well, Jermaine Warren right now will let the Ford go. Indeed, it does seem as though Warren here perhaps playing the game and let the pros go, because he's going to have best up his inside as well. I think Warren thinking about the bigger picture, as that's going to be door to door there. And in the end, best getting on past just about. And Jermaine Warren falls back to 8th place. With Shahi's ahead, the next tries to try and poke and probe. But James Logsdon going defensive versus Tom Bryce. Bryce trying to go round the outside, hold his position. That's not going to work. And in the end, James Logsdon does now take full place. And Bryce running wide. That's going to cost him time. There goes Jones. There goes Best past him. And Bryce there, a little bit too enthusiastic perhaps to try and hold on to the move through Tower Corner. And unfortunately, when you're on that outside and the driver's got their nose ahead towards the apex, normally you do have to entirely back out. Otherwise, you will get the elbow. As they come through Le Mans, I don't think there was any malice meant between Logsdon and Bryce. And to be fair, I don't think Bryce will feel there was any malice. But the problem is now he's got to try and get a little bit malicious to keep that Corvette that we look at behind. So we're running board looking back from the rear of the 272. That is Jermaine Warren, the man who's currently third in Pro-Am. And, well, as they come up towards Sunset Bend here, the sun has definitely already set. It's well and truly past that, unless somebody has blocked the sun. And, well, coming up through turn 17, it does seem as though now Warren just build himself up. We know that Corvette a little bit stronger on fuel strategy compared to the Porsche. The Porsche is the faster car on the current balance of points, which definitely has seen a big shift in the favour of the Porsche for the purposes of the 2026 Season 2 of iRacing. Right now, that Corvette still goes very well. The longer the race, the better the Corvette becomes. And that is what it's all about here today. We have a longer race by comparison, so therefore we keep our drivers on their toes for an extra 15 minutes or so. But Shahi's ahead, the BMW driver, all on the back of this group as we ride on board. The gyro camera here, we're going number 12 drive from Sri Lanka. And well, it all went wrong at turn number 1 for Zuhair. Went sideways before he really got going around Genderby and Bend. And well, there was a corner there, but he ended up going right rather than left. As he comes down towards the next braking zone, you can hear that wonderful roar of that BMW V8 twin turbo absolutely screaming its way away. And going on the attack here. But the problem is that right now, as much as he can get close, he's not going to go to get quite close up here to think about the move, or is he? As they come through Fangio, will he go for that move? He's going to look to the inside. In fact, he's going to tuck up the inside there versus what will be Warren. Warren in so close to the back of Bryce's car. There was a double draft there of Forza ahead. He was able to squeeze around the inside. It's a smart manoeuvre in there for your number 12 driver in the BMW, getting that move done with a bit of aplomb. But as he now takes that place, he'll now look to go after Bryce. He'll split the pram drives for a brief moment. Meanwhile, what exactly is happening at the very front? Well, Ryan Otis, his gap now is 7.5 seconds to the rest of the field. He is running away with this and lapping the best part of a second lap faster than anybody else. As Chad Henson, currently second place. Well, the pro driver here bringing a long train of cars. The CPEC, Logsdon, Jones and Best all together. And then we do have a 1.7 second gap to Tom Bryce by comparison, as you can see there in the rear of the picture. But these two groups seem to be gradually conglomerated together. So here, looking to go on the move here, taking some yard trimmings with him as Tom Bryce takes some grass down, I think out of fear of the BMW, and indeed the Giga Grill machine trying to go on the attack, the BMW M8. But it doesn't seem as though Zahere's going to be close up here. Can he get Bryce to make a mistake through Sunset? The answer is no, not this time. New fastest lap at race, so 56.749. My good lord, that's a monster lap from Otis. That's 1.4 seconds faster than anything else anyone has been able to do so far, at least inside that top 3. And well, he's absolutely flying, is Otis. And if James Logsdon can be unveiled to the world and get back into second place, I think he might have a way of keeping up with him, but we'll have to see. But here comes Zahere on the inside, as it was Bryce who went a little bit deeper, Genderby and Bend. And, well, that's going to be Zahere up into 7th place. Lovely move from him, classic move, and Bryce in the end saw the items on the wall and let the place go. But now Eric Lagai comes into the back of this group. So as soon as one car gets clear of it, another now queues up onto it as we ride aboard the dashboard of your number 6. And the privateer right now, what's going to be the game plan here? As we can see, Warren looking up the inside of Bryce. Bryce really not offering a bit of a defensive wall there, hoping he can beat the Corvette on the brakes. Locks up a little bit on the front right brake house. It's going to be too wide on the exit. Eric, the guy at this point, is looking at the back of both cars. I think he wants to get involved, but the problem is it's not going to be easy for him here as he builds up the power. And when it says please stand by on the back there of Bryce's car, and please stand by for a potential move, it's telling Eric the guy. And well, there's going to be Warren up the inside. He's going to go for it, takes the curb, a little bit of rush between the two of them. And the guy then looks up the inside. Oh, goodness me, that's close there as he tries to make his way in. It doesn't quite work out initially, but now Warren sees him there and he does go around the outside. It's brave Eric the guy, and to be fair, great racing for all three drivers there, right on the limit. A little bit of a love touch between two cars, Bryce and Warren in particular, but they got away with it, and Eric the guy in the end, patience is a virtue as they say, and he definitely had it in spades. But meanwhile, with all that battling going on, well, we've had some big moments earlier in the race, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to take a quick look back in time at what exactly happened at the race start, and here we go for a trip all the way back to the beginning. And as our race did get underway, of course, it didn't get underway perfectly for some drives, but it went very well for others. Shahi Zahair perhaps being the recipient of a difficult start, as it all went green flag. So as you can see, it was free wide there, and on the very right, well, that was Eric Lagai almost getting the jump on the entire field as they came into turn number 1. But into agenda B, and they went. BMW in the middle of the road, and in the end, it was a loss of the rear there for Zahair, and unfortunately, Ferrero going around the outside. I think he was slightly touched as he tried to avoid the way with BMW, but it all went wrong. This is what it looked like from Ferrero's perspective as he got up to speed. So made his way to the opening corner. Zahair's about to let go. There he goes. Ferrero takes away for the action, but unfortunately, the rear left quarter panel gets clipped by the rear of the BMW, and the American to the barrier, and having to tow to bits as a result of the damage. We had this for at best only months later. And this was Best battling his way on through turn number 5, and the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver, well, in the end, trying to get the power down, but unfortunately got it wrong there coming out of turn number 5, and the car going to the barriers, and due to sensory reasons, we had to hide it hitting the barrier, and it came back off the wall. It all went wrong for him. This happened to James Logsdon moments later, and this was Logsdon from the lead of the race at the time. Lost the rear coming through Collier Bend, and it completely slid sideways, but did very well to catch it and hold it there as the Team Bear Poke driver found a way to stop the car just in time. We also had this for Taylor Bookout only months later. The opening lap was absolutely full of madness and excitement. Logsdon lost it there, and then this happened to Taylor Bookout only months later. He was leading, and well, Team Bear Pope and the lead a bit of a poison combination. He went straight on! The brakes failed at the car entirely, and as a return immediately, so Bookout's car just giving way. But he's not quite sure. In fact, the reason why he's told, he's wondering what on earth's happened there. And then we had this for Eric Lagai. He took over the lead almost, though he was chased after Ryan Otis at the time. And there's the proof. You cut too far to left, the rear of the car dropping off of the curb at turn 15, and suddenly the rear just let go, and the number 6 driver making an innocent mistake, but a very costly one. And then we had this for Matthew Morhardt a lap later, and this was coming down towards Sunset Bend. And your number 10 driver looking to be under a bit of pressure there from Chad Henson. Lost her entirely. At that point, he's going, and he's gone to the tyre barrier. And unfortunately for Matthew Morhardt, indeed, that will definitely have rattled him. And I do feel for him on that one. It's not an easy mistake to recover from. And indeed, the barrier is absolutely unrelenting. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live racing. And as we do come back, there's plenty more racing action to come. We've already completed almost 15 minutes of this race. It's crazy to think how the time is flying us by. But as they say, when you're having fun, time always flies. Indeed, Oil Drivers delivers and a very exciting race full of thrills and spills. But we do come back for Matt Best right now with Julian Jones right behind. And the EcoBoost driver here staying nice and close. I can promise you, he hasn't paid me to say as many EcoBoost as many times as possible, ladies and gentlemen. If they were paying me that much, I can tell you one thing, I'll be trying to make myself a millionaire today. But joking aside, and putting the EcoBoost aside as well, although in the end, I think if I keep saying it, I'm going to get it as the equivalent of what would be a modern-day Tourette. Well, as far as Tourette's go, that's not a bad one to have, to be fair, although joking aside, it is a serious condition for those affected by it. And we can see Julian Jones here on a mission in the family machine as the MOP racing driver, enjoying himself, no doubt about it. But meanwhile, Jermaine Warren, he has found his way into lead of the prime class. Unfortunately, we didn't quite catch that move being made on Bryce earlier on, but we do have now what is the visibility of him enjoying himself ahead of Bryce. So therefore, we do apologise for missing that move, but at the same time, we can see the consequences, which is that Jermaine Warren now into the prime lead with Tom Bryce there, and Donald Seepeck a further 3 seconds behind. So what this will mean essentially now is that for CPEC, he needs to try and catch up because he needs to beat Warren if he wants to become the US Cup champion in the Pro-Am class. But Tom Bryce could be kingmaker here because the thing is he's giving chase, but CPEC will have to pass him first. The strategy could be now the big game changer. Given the fact if you can save some fuel over the opening stint, you might be able to gain 3 or 4 seconds in the pit lane, and that could definitely move back into stead. And Tom Bryce will be looking to achieve that as much as possible, given the fact he's running right in the draft of Warren. But back up towards the front of the field, Ryan Otis is already checked out. He's 12.5 seconds clear at the moment, so we're looking at the battle for second through to 5th, and 4 drivers to go. Chad Henson's at the front of it, but as we look back from the rear of his car, well, understand me, James Logsdon's the first, looking to try and pick his way past that run-up spot. We're coming down in towards turn number 3 again. Very difficult section of corners, turns 3, 4 and 5, because they're all low-speed bends, but the aim of the game, particularly at turn 5, is you need to late apex it as much as possible. If you can go for that late apex, you carry more speed coming onto Big Bend, but the problem is, get a little bit too wide, as Henson just demonstrated it, and some oversteer will kick in, and you'll be forced onto an exit curve that unsettles the car even more. So it really is additive, and that means your rivals get closer. So we can see Henson having to go defensive here into the hairpin. Logsdon trying to go around the outside, and he almost gets it. Oh, car around there. Is that Gable Ferrero? Yes, that is. That's Ferrero, who was a lap down. Well, he's got spinning around there at the hairpin just in front of them and waits for the whole field to come through. Great awareness from everybody, including Ferrero. But you got to feel for it, because that's all got wrong. Meanwhile, Matt Best looks up the inside. It goes all in. Again, the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver make the magic happen. The answer is yes, just about. Not quite, maybe. I don't know. Ask me another question. But right now, I can see he's going to go all in again here at Town Bend. But Logsdon stays on the outside. He's going to try and stay there just for a little bit longer. Henson at this point is going to be rubbing his hands together in front and thinking, right, he can run away a little bit as these two fight each other. But Logsdon, Best still side by side. As we lose Best briefly, comes back for the E3, still on the inside as they go into turn 15. It's side by side racing at its finest here between our two GT drivers. And Logsdon there does get the upper hand coming in towards the Lombard Bend. Best backs out there. No, there's only really one line into turn 16. It's not on the inside, it's on the outside. So therefore Logsdon to hold his ground right now. And Julian Joe's just watching on here. And understand, but he tried to make sure he doesn't get too involved too soon, but also perhaps saving some fuel and some tyre life as he makes his way on down. As he does so, your number 69 driver here looking comfortable at the moment after we couldn't quite figure out where he was at the start, but he was on that grid. And one technical issue holding back, as meanwhile, is that Best into the pit lane? It is! So Best comes on in, and only after 18 minutes. Well, this is for an undercut strategy. It is a very early undercut. This is one of the earliest we expect to see, but this might work out, to be fair. We know the fuel tank can go quite long in these cars, and therefore Best right now might be trying to pull off some magic here, unless it's a drive-through penalty, but that would be for 10 instant points, and that would be absolutely gut-wrenching if so. And as I look at my Conte booth window, I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, I think it might be. I think Best has picked up a drive-through penalty for contact with Logsdon that knocked him over the 10-point limit, and therefore Best is now back out of the pits. It was a drive-through, so that's sad because of the fact we were really building up to crescendo there between Best and Logsdon. However, now Henson is going to have the pressure of Logsdon back on him once again. We do have that low instant point limit, of course, to make sure our drivers race as cleanly as possible. And I think, unfortunately, there, with the slight discontinuity that we see on Best car, I wonder if perhaps potentially a phantom contact was registered, where the two cars didn't make contact. But, of course, given the fact that the car wasn't necessarily seen on the circuit at the time for Best, it did mean that the car was registered as potentially making contact, and I think it may have happened coming through Bishop when we did briefly lose Best to the ether. He came back, and I think the two cars were in a collision path, and unfortunately iRacing will have registered it as a contact even if it didn't happen. But of course the simulator can only go with what it sees, and therefore we are all at its mercy. But Chad Henson right now is at the mercy of pressure behind him, as Ryan Otis already 16 seconds away. Well, the battle for second place right now, we have lost one of our contenders from it, but we've added two more to the mix. And indeed, that's the great thing about these pro drives. You lose one, another two spring up. It really is right now splitting the head of a snake, as we do have Eric the guy right on the back of the group. We show he's ahead just in front of the BMW, and what's good to see, we've got different manufacturers all trying to get involved here. Porsche may be popular, but to be fair, BMW and Ford also having a role to play. As Chad Henson defending here, Logsdon trying to go around the outside. This is brave, but now, where will Logsdon go after this? They bounced away through Sunset, and the answer is he'll stay on the outside. He'll get Henson to have to take a very tight line all the way through, and now coming down towards the start line. Now it's going to be Logsdon on the outside again, but he wants to be on the outside of Gender and Bend. That's the optimum line. Henson will defend here. You can defend well onto the inside of turn 1, but the problem is you'll have the inside in towards turn 3, and you naturally lose the momentum, and Logsdon showing that as he carries all the speed around the corner. And Henson have to continue his defence all the way to turn 3, but Henson holding on for now. As they come through the first sequence of corners, now onto Big Bend. And Logsdon at this point now thinking to himself, okay, I've got it where I want him, coming down towards the hairpin. Now, will we see Henson go defensive again? And I get the feeling we may see the privateer from Turbo Rennsport do so. He does so onto the brakes, and the Team Bear Poach are looking around the outside. He's tried this before, but what can he do that's a bit different here? And the answer seems to be not quite. I think he was trying to make sure that Henson wouldn't get the power down in time, but Henson there saw what was coming and made sure he closed the door firmly shut before they got to Fangio. So now up towards Cunningham Bend, and Henson again defensive there. This pressure absolutely incredible now, and Logsdon just staying behind. He can't find a way in at the end, at least at this time. As we leave them for a brief moment, we do come back to Jermaine Warren. He is, of course, your prime leader. Head of Tom Bryce and Lord CPET being dropped by them a little bit. Now 3 seconds is the gap to that man. Matt Best, here you can see on your pictures, he is still running after his drive-through penalty. He's got a long way to go. But to be fair, given his pace, you never know. He may be able to get into that top 6 pack before all is said and done today. Don CPET, the man we now look to, third Ian Pro-Am, and the BMW there shining bright. Although the unfortunate problem is in the night, he wants to try and catch up and get to the spotlight with Warren and Bryce, but the gap is a little bit too large. We'll also show you Glenn Bratton here in his BMW as he makes his way on around through The right-hander tower, a bit lonely at the moment, fall for your prams, last of the runners there. Although he does have an 18-second gap over Matthew Morhardt, which has been gradually closed down at the best part of 2 seconds a lap. But Bratton right now just making sure he stays out of trouble and tries to get some points on the board before he sees the checkered flag in this one. From there, we come all the way back to your lonely leader, Otis. And right now, will this man definitely charge off into the distance and leaving nothing up to question other than whether he will make a mistake of his own doing. But he's one of those drivers, I suspect, that has to be all or nothing. He cannot drive at 90% because to do so would risk having a bit of an incident. And therefore, Otis giving it his all right now. But back to the long pack of cars. And as we can see, Chad Henson still holding on. For now, as we're on lap number 12, we've got plenty more laps to come. But Logsdon, Jones, Zahir and Lagai all queued up behind. And one understanding for Eric Lagai, I think if he had not had that error early on, he may have been able to run away from this group and go hunting after Otis, but it's not worked out. He's going to try and pick his way on past Shahi Zahir. Looking to the inside as Henson in the foreground goes defensive again versus Logsdon, but the guy dives up the inside there. Front brake is going red hot. The carbon ceramics are used to that, but of course these brakes get warmer and warmer as time goes on. That's the guy ahead of Zahir. Zahir playing quite passive there, and if it's full process for him as we see them make the way past that camera shot coming out of the curb. Turn number 9, lovely camera, really gives you a feeling of the speed. Oh, hold up, that's a look up there for Chad Henson. He's going to lose 3 of the places, he's going to lose all 4 of them. Well, it's going to be Zahir trying to get around the outside, he's run wide. Can he get to the inside? He can, and Zahir just squeezes his way in. My good lord, that's brave. Henson, to be fair, knew exactly how much space he could give him versus how much space he was not required to give him. And, well, Chad Henson loses out to the end, but a small lock-up, big consequences. But when you have 5 cars separated by no more than a grand total of 1.3 seconds on average a lap, that's always going to happen. But credit where it's due to Chad Henson. He fought that hard still in a car that definitely was recovering, and Shahi Zahir was brave to go into that space. What an incredible moment. And well, we take a look back at what exactly happened there for Chad Henson, ladies and gentlemen. So this was it going to a degree wrong for Henson, coming down into the braking zone for what was turn number 10. And he went on the brakes here defending, and he lost the rear of the car very slightly. I think the rear right tire just bounced off the apex curb, albeit not too visible for that camera angle. And then afterwards, 3 drives got through, but Shahi Zahir had to be fully committed for that one. This is what it looked like on board from Zahir's perspective as he made his way through the corner. So there's Henson now getting himself up to speed, and Zahir at this point had to back out initially to see what was going on, but then braved it around. 2 wheels on the grass. Legal overtake, however, took the curb at turn number 12, which unsettled the car, but did not unsettle him. And Shahi Zahir getting that move done in the end. Lovely move, and what incredible racing between them. But it's back to your live pictures we go, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as I try to carry on, we're almost at the halfway point of the race now, and indeed, the pit stops will start to become a bigger and bigger full process. As that's deep for Logsdon. Logsdon goes very deep in the hairpin, almost going into what was the escape road. He does rejoin there in the end, but meanwhile, Henson and Zahir still fighting each other, and that buys Logsdon a little bit of time. So a small error from Logsdon, but having big consequences as Jones and Lagai get ahead. And meanwhile, under braking right now, we can see there Chad Henson going defensive all the way, and he's not going to be able to go on the attack versus Logsdon when Zahir's constantly poking and probing, but he does get that place back into turn number 10. And well, now Henson will be thinking to himself, I'm between a rock and a hard place. I've got a BMW that's constantly breathing down my neck, but I've also got to try and find a way back here to James Logsdon, who's not going to be an easy customer. Meanwhile, going under the radar, we said he was at the back of this group playing surveillance. Well, right now, the one's going to be keeping surveillance on him. Julian Jones is up into second. He's been cheeky. He stuck his way on through, and right now, the Ford GTE driver, all hail the EcoBoost. I don't know where that came from. Well, as he makes his way through turn number 16, you can see our Le Mans driver, in terms of coming out Le Mans, Ben is absolutely flying out there. And, well, can he find a way potentially to break away here? Because he's been waiting for some time. And something tells me Jones really has been playing the game of patience here, where everyone else has been playing high-speed checkers. He's been playing low-speed chess. We're on his way on out through Sunset Bend. Now, if he really wanted to put the fly in the ointment here, if he feels confident on his pace, he would pit very soon, because it would be a real knock to the confidence of the drivers around. And the fact he's got into second, he's probably saved quite a bit of fuel, and he would come on in. But I suspect he's going to try and hold track position for now, because if you have track position, it's always powerful. No matter what circuit you're at, unless you're at a circuit like Monza, for example, where it really is about the slipstream. Well, here at Sebring, yes, you have some straights, yes, you have plenty of overtaking opportunities, but you can always go defensive, and that's what's been shown by so many drivers. So Jones right now has really given himself a golden ticket here for the run-out spot, unless Ryan Otis has the mother of all mistakes, which 24 seconds away at the moment. I think he'd recover from one of those unless he completely takes the car to pieces, and it'd have to be towed. Not that we're wishing that on him, to be fair, but that'd be the only circumstance right now I think he's going to be caught today. Well, it's Julian Jones right now who's really leading the campaign for second place. Jermaine Warren, we give you a prime update. He's currently 7th overall. His Corvette now starting to get Bryce just that little bit more, and the gap now up to 1.2 seconds ahead of Donald Sepek. And well, you can see your top 3 in Pro-Am spreading a little bit. Sepek being dropped, and right now the BMW driver here, we don't know this BMW has seen quite a few adjustments to it with the balance performance over recent time, particularly with regards to its long-term race pace, which was its Achilles heel before the time model changes and the physics model changes to the GTEs. It seems like at the moment though, the BMW here at Sebring still lacking that edge a little bit in terms of long distance pace, although Shahi Zahair has been proven he can be quite quick in the car. Even so, it does seem as though the BMW is just lacking it towards the back end of the stint compared to the start of the stint, whereas the Porsches and the Corvettes are a bit stronger, and the Ford as well seems to be that car that's a bit of a unicorn. The car, of course, we're not seeing here today is a Ferrari 488 GTE Evo. Sadly, we don't have any of those out there, but that's been a bit of a princess car, but now it's a little bit more cooperative by comparison with its predecessor. You can see Jones coming out of the Sunset Bend. Right now going on to his 15th tour of the circuit under race conditions, and still holding ground since a personal best of 56.943. Indeed, a lot of personal bests got through. So I think now the battling's calmed down between this group. They're all getting their head down and trying to put some laps together to build up to the next battle. But Jones definitely, I think, now trying to act as the leader in this group. He was a bit faster than Eric Lagai that time around, but Lagai, I think, will be inclined to sit behind. Best is into the pits again, but this time this is for a pit stop as he makes his way towards the pit wall, and therefore he will come to a halt, and it's going to put him all the way to the back of the field. But what it will do is buy him clear track once again, so he will be very happy to be able to just pump out the laps and see how far he can go. He'll be his one and only strategic stop here today. Sadly, of course, he did have to come in for that drive-through penalty, but it has now been cleared, and Best can get on his way very shortly with that fuel stop. Now, no tyre change is expected, given the fact that fuel has to go in first and then the tyres may be changed. Therefore, if you were to change all 4 tyres, at least change one tyre, it costs you 7 seconds per tyre. So do that times 4, that'd be 28 seconds in total added to your pit stop time. So you don't really want to change tyres in these cars. And the GTE tyre compound, if you do manage it well, can go the best part of almost 2 hours from we understand the research we've been doing over the course of this season with the new tyre model. We have seen the durability of the tyre be extended, and well, it's one of those tyres whereby it has quite a wide operating window. The only thing with the tyre is if you do overheat it, it can be a bit difficult to get it to cool down initially. So you do have to be careful about warming your tyres up too much, and slides can really be the death of the tyre for a brief moment, or at least for a lap. But Ryan Otis into the pit lane, so I think he decides with a 24-second gap that he's going to gamble here coming in, and well, I wonder if we're going to see everybody else come in. The one thing, of course, Otis has not had the advantage of is the ability to fuel save, which will definitely hold him back a little bit in terms of strategic stakes, as we see Julian Jones coming through the final corner. And as he does so, does he defect to the pit lane, or does he stay out? He stays out. Well, that's to be perhaps expected, given the fact he was doing quite a bit of fuel saving, but we are going to see most other cars come into the pit lane. So Jones is going to go another lap. He's been offered that opportunity with so much fuel saving in the open instead. So strategy-wise, Julian Jones will go on to lead a lap of the race, although we suspect Ryan Otis will be taking that back in due course. He has a 19-second stop. He says put some extra fuel in, so he's not been able to do fuel saving. Donald Sepek, meanwhile, comes on through. And has this been the master plan for the BMW driver in the Prime class? Has he been fuel saving to try and get the upper hand versus Bryce and Warren, given their fighting? Well, if so, I think he committed to it quite early. And I wonder whether his commitment to it has actually undermined his race a little bit, in the fact that, understandably, being so far back, the best part of almost 4 seconds behind the prime leaders, well, it may have cost him some time. But as Eric Lagai comes out, Lagai there getting the jump back ahead of James Logsdon. Matthew Morhardt's going to go another lap, so Morhardt decides not to pit yet. And, well, after his difficult start to race, understandable. But meanwhile, Logsdon and Lagai side by side here. And it's going to be the car with the heavenly aura there of James Logsdon on the inside. The Bearcoat car shining bright with the headlights of Lagai. And we're going on through turn number 5. Well, it's going to be the number 42 moving its way up into 5th place overall on the road currently. That's the track position. Strategically, we believe that it's at least for 3rd. We don't know if it's for 2nd because we still got Julian Jones out there yet to pit. But he will be coming in at the end of this lap based on our our understanding of the fuel tanks. He's ahead, and Chad Henson, they come out together. Henson back ahead. Oh, hold up a second, as Logai's just got back ahead of Logsdon. Oh, what on earth has happened there? James Logsdon suddenly loses it out. I think he's had another mistake coming out of the hairpin up towards Fangio. And if so, will the Fangio bend really cost him time? Chad Henson having to go defensive. Zahere straight away, exit the pit lane on the attack. Looks around the outside. He's going to be brave. That is incredibly brave. And he gets ahead. My goodness. And Chad Henson in the end. I mean, if they were any closer, they were millimetres away from contact. Now, that is commitment. But from Shahizad, that's trust as well with regards to Chad Henson. Now, I'm not just besmirching Chad Henson at all. But the fact of the matter is, when you go around the outside of a corner and your rival's on the inside and then you've got to get to the inside of the next bend, you're expecting your rival to back out slightly or give you the space. Henson didn't necessarily have to give him as much space as he did. He could have run him all the way to the curb, but in the end he knew the limit, and Zahere brave, and that bravery rewarded him very comfortably. But into the pits has come Julian Jones as Donald Seepeck also comes on down, but Jones is the man we need to keep an eye on, because we look to the blimp camera, car parked up. Where is Eric Logai? Well, here's Logai making his way on through Sunset at the moment. And as he rolls his way out the corner, well, gets very close to the wall. He's pushing hard. Jones makes his way down pit lane. He has been serviced. He's hit the pit limiter line. Build up the speed. And I think he's going to come out behind. He's going to come out in front, in fact, of Eric Logai, as Logai makes his way through Jenny to bend. And Julian Jones will take that battle for second place firmly into his hands. Matthew Morhardt is right behind. But remember, Morhardt does need to pit. He cannot go to the end of the race based on what he did pit for the repair works of the car. So Eric Logai has lost out to the tune of 3 seconds. So in the end, Julian Jones having an absolutely brilliant pit stop and really making an open instant work in his favour. That's some smart craft there for Julian Jones. He's 23 seconds off of Ryan Otis, so I don't think he's going to be catching a leader anytime soon. But Jones right now has earned himself that second place on the road, and now he's just got to try and hold on to it for the rest of the distance. But Matt Best, meanwhile, he's on a mission, as Donald Seepeck has come out behind Jermaine Warren by 3 seconds, so Warren getting the job done in the pit. Had a much quicker stop in the Corvette to the tune of half a second. Add up to a second in totality, and well, Matt Best at the inside there of Seepeck and just taking the place, and Seepeck not wanting to fight. That's understandable. I think Donald here really focusing more perhaps on the Pro-Am win. I mean, to chase it down as Tom Bryce has been dropped, and Bryce in fact had a much longer pit stop. So Donald Seepeck into second place in Pro-Am. He was able to jump Bryce, so that's a change. Bryce had a very long pit stop by comparison. That's part of 22 seconds versus Seepeck's 19 seconds and Warren's 18.6. So Tom Bryce has lost out of the pit. He shot to the third place spot on the Pro-Am podium. He's still got quite a comfortable gap to Glenn Bratton, who's down here in fourth place in class, 12th overall. So therefore, there's been a bit of a change there with regards to strategy in the Pro-Am class at least, but not for Jermaine Warren, who holds on and has extended his lead. But here's Julian Jones, Matthew Morhardt looking up the inside. Now, will Jones just let this go? I suspect a little part of him saying, don't let it go. That's the devil at his shoulder. Meanwhile, the angel on the other side will be telling him or reminding him, let him go, as he's got to come into the pits. And there you go, literally like that. Matthew Morhardt's into the pit lane. You could not have timed that any better. We promise you that was not scripted. But as he makes his way across the timing line, well, Eric Logai right now still trying to chase after Julian Jones, but the gap is 3 seconds, and there's Eric Logai, and everybody knows all hail the eco boost. Sorry, I'm really going to need to get myself checked for that, ladies and gentlemen. It does come out every so often. You have to forgive me. I think I do have a bit of a medical condition growing at this point. But as the Porsche screams on, still giving chase, and Shahi Zahere 4 seconds back behind, with Chad Henson still following him. Henson right now trying to see if he can catch back up to the BMW. But remember, what we have seen is at the start of the stint, the BMW does seem to be one of the strongest cars out there. Which, as the stint goes on, the BMW starts to fall away. And I do wonder whether it's front brake temperatures that are letting the BMWs down. It has been their weakness is their braking capacity. I think the front brakes have been upgraded quite significantly, but I think it is the temperatures on the front tyres and the front brakes which definitely hold it back. But at the circuits, we do have quite a few heavy braking zones. Sebring does, of course, with the hairpin being one of them, and also turn number 3 and 5. So that might be just the reason why Zahere is able to get ahead initially, because the car's able to cool down in the pit lane, much like it'll be cool on the formation lap. But as you do go deeper and deeper into the half an hour stints we are seeing, sunny, those tyre temperatures start to come up, the front brake temperatures come up, and it really just starts to ebb away at the pace. But Zahere doing an absolutely brilliant job in the front engine rear-wheel drive car in making sure the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines have their match. And that's what he's all about. As we look back to Ryan Otis for a brief moment, your leader right now. Indeed, absolutely gliding away at the front of the field. Another lap comes on by. What's it going to be this time? His last was a 57.56. That one's a 57.157, and with a 24-second gap over Julian Jones. Right now, Ryan Otis is definitely controlling the narrative. But speaking of taking a look at the narrative, we're going to take a quick look back in time at some of the big moments ago, including what was the battle between Shahi Zahir and Chad Henson. And here is a quick replay, ladies and gentlemen, of an absolutely thrilling battle. So this was the battle on lap number 16. It was Zahir getting a much better run out of the hairpin and coming down towards what was Cunningham Bend. Henson went defensive, but Zahir said, right, hold on to your hats, we're going around the outside. And in the end, so close between the two of them. And as he came in towards turn number 11, Henson did put the brakes on there. He knew he would have to, as there would be contact between himself and Zahir, but both drivers gave each other just as good as the other. And well, that is how Zahir managed to find his way on past. We did have this happen as well, with Eric the Guy passing James Logsdon just beforehand. But what exactly happened to Logsdon to enable this? Well, the answer is into the hairpin they went, and I suspect Logsdon's gone deep. He has. Again, he went deep. Didn't go to the grass this time, but that hairpin really catching out on multiple occasions. It seems like it's the bane of his day today, that hairpin. And then, of course, we did have this move by Matthew Best only moments later. And this was on Donald Cepek. It was for position. Well, made the move, went down the backstretch, down Auburn, and in fact already cleared him, so I think that was a discontinuity error there. My apologies, the move was made a bit earlier on, and well, this was that move then and there. And this was coming down towards the hairpin, and in the end, Donald Cepek not really fighting this too hard, and let him Best up the inside, and Best just taking that move there on the braking zone. But with those moves being made, we come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, well, a big shout out to, of course, Arturo Miorga for providing us with the software that we have in order to be able to bring you replays of race moments when we are looking at an iRacing replay file to bring you these post-round broadcasts. Indeed, one of the technical limitations we did have when we started to do these all those years ago was the fact that we could not cut back to replays of events without risking, essentially, having to restart the entire replay file, and therefore it meant we could not do those replays. But thankfully, we have a little bit of software that enables that, and it's all thanks to Arturo Miorga. We're always grateful to him, and we'll always give him a shout out on a broadcast which makes the use of it. But meanwhile, as we head on to the line, well, meanwhile, James Logsdon trying to pick his way on past Tom Bryce now. And well, in fact, hold up a second, Logsdon being all the way down there, that was not on my cards as he comes on in towards turn number 17. I don't think that was anybody's cards. I wonder what's happened. We've missed something whilst we were getting a replay of race footage. So Logsdon's had a bit of a moment. We'll try and get you an update on when we can, ladies and gentlemen. We won't be able to get a replay of it, unfortunately. But what we can tell you is that he's just passed Tom Bryce. He's now back into 8th place. But James Logsdon, well, this is very much at risk here of him losing out in the US Cup as he comes on through. Although he did have a bit of a gap, he's just got to recover a couple more places to guarantee it, but that's not going to go down well at all. But what exactly happened to Logsdon? That is what we need an answer to, as Bryce and Cepek together. And in fact, Tom Bryce has got back ahead of Donald Cepek whilst this has all been happening. I think Donald Cepek's had an off track, which has led to that. So we cut away for a brief moment, and suddenly all pandemonium's played out. Well, the answer to the question, first with regards to James Logsdon, it would have happened on lap number 19 if something's gone wrong. And in fact, it was just a poor lap by looks of things. We are just double checking. And in fact, no, it was a black flag for James Logsdon on lap 16. So he picked up a drive-through penalty. And that's forced Logsdon all the way down the order. So that explains it. That's how Logsdon has lost out. It was for a drive-through penalty for instant points, and I suspect it would have been the off-track that we did see a bit earlier on that's cost him that, and of course difficulties for Matt Best. Meanwhile, with regards to what's happened to Donald Cepek to put him back behind Bryce, well, the answer to that is there was a brief moment off track. I think there was a little bit of contact as well with another driver, and that's what set him down the order. So therefore, well, on Bryce right now, ahead of Cepek, but I don't think Donald is going to be patient in just staying behind him for the rest of the race. Something tells me he's going to want that place back sooner rather than later. But as we do ride aboard with the Team Bear Poke driver currently running in third in the Pro-Am class, well, he wants to go on the attack. But remember, out of him and what is Jermaine Warren, whoever beats the other will be your US Cup Pro-Am winner. So therefore, Jermaine Warren right now is on course. Cepek needs to pass Bryce. He then needs to get Logsdon out of the way or have Logsdon pass Jermaine Warren. And then he's got to make the move on Warren himself with 20 minutes to go. But Cepek looking very smooth. That was a lovely line through Sunset Bend. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 1, that was a line that could make the sun rise, let alone make it set. Going up towards agenda being. Will he look for the move on the inside? No, he's going to play patient here. I think the game plan is right now, just see if he can find a way to nurse this BMW a little bit further into the stint, get a bit more life there, because as we said earlier on, the BMW does seem to have a weakness whereby its performance drops off over the stint a bit more significantly compared to the other cars. The Porsche seems to be a little more stable in its pace. Meanwhile, the Corvette seems to not quite have as much pace as the Porsche, but it definitely has the fuel-saving capacity and the time management. It's a good mixture on the cars there, really keeping it exciting. But as they come on down in towards the hairpin, we're on right now 9 seconds away from this, so looking quite comfortable as James Logsdon at the head of the quartet. There are 4 cars there, albeit one of them is a lap down. That's Gabriel Ferrero's Corvette that would like to make its way forward, but the M&M machine right now in the Pro class, no, to only be unlapping himself. It would not be taking overall position at this time. We have lost one driver along the way in this race, and that is Taylor Buckout, and we can assure you that he's not 92 laps down there. That's a glitch of our time tower with the replays we've been taking. But right now, Gabriel Ferrero definitely on the back of this group, and it's a very difficult situation to be in because you want to unlap yourself, and you can theoretically do it. The problem is the fact that once you do get ahead of other lead lap cars, you need to be able to make a very quick break away from it, because normally, if you cannot break away and get out of blue flag distance within a lap of unlapping yourself, then the driver you've unlapped yourself from can argue to the stewards that you have essentially been a bit of a nuisance and you've impeded them. Of course, it's not always as clear-cut as that, but that can be the argument made in the fact that you've made an overtake on a driver who is a lap ahead of you. You've got that lap back, but you've not then been able to get away, so you've actually held them up to a degree. And particularly when you do have this close battle between Bryce, Logsdon and CPEC, they won't want Gabriel Ferrero essentially interdicting into it. So I think Ferrero's just got to sit there at the moment and wait a little bit longer. But patience will be definitely wobbling away. As we do look back to Ryan Otis, your leader. Well, right now we're still running away. Gap to Julian Jones, the best part of 27 seconds, and he's extending that gap lap after lap. But Jones is breaking away from Eric Leguy, and at this point, something tells me I think Julian Jones and the number 69 car will be looking all nice. As meanwhile, Eric Leguy and Shahi Zahair, well, it's Zahair is closing on Leguy. The Porsche driver here is starting to lose a little bit of pace. Now, I wonder if it's just a small blip or whether there's something significant here. I wonder whether Leguy has potentially pushed the tyres a bit too hard earlier on, because Zahair's BMW, that last lap was half a second quicker. We'll keep an eye on it over the next couple of laps. Zahair may have a chance at a podium here, and if so, well, this would definitely be a turnaround. Given the fact that car was losing pace at the end of the first stint, well, Zahair now seems to have got himself into a zone whereby he's feeling a bit more confident with the pace of the car and able to manage it a bit better. Chad Henson still 2.4 seconds behind. You see with the rear of the picture, and then briefly before he was lost, the ether was Matt Best. He'll come back at some point, I suspect. But right now, Chad Henson not quite able to respond to the call of Shahi Zahair's BMW that definitely is looking cooler than most out there as he heads through Le Mans. Looking back to Jermaine Warren, your Pro-Am leader, currently in 7th place, and, well, has definitely carved out time for himself, and it does seem as though the deeper into the race he's gone, the faster he's getting compared to his rivals. Although Bryce and CPEC are matching lap time-wise, he has opened up that gap quite significantly so far. And, well, with 16 minutes left on the clock here, I wouldn't be surprised at this point if the confidence is definitely going to be starting to abound very nicely for Warren that this could be his US Cup to take. And the middle-of-the-pack racing driver, I do believe, has not won a Cup or a championship in the middle of the pack race league since its inception. So this would be, and well, to be fair, it goes to show that we have no bias here at the middle of the pack race league. This is one of our organisers, and Jermaine doing an absolutely fantastic job behind the scenes, picking up where Jason Landry has left off, with Landry not being available to perhaps run things for this season alongside the admin team. And Warren doing a fantastic job of running the GTE League. And right now, well, the fact that it has taken the best part of what will be 5 years, if not 6, for him to win a cup, well, that's how good the competition is, and there's no bias towards our admins. Although I will say all hail the Corvette of Jermaine Warren if he is able to get it done, just for a simple reason, it will be a huge result for him. As James Logsdon, he has been chased there by Todd Bryce and Donald CPEC. Well, CPEC falling back a little bit, and Bryce right now definitely, I think, breaking away from CPEC, albeit it's going to lead to a very interesting second half of the season if things finish as they currently stand, because of course we will reset the points for the Euro Cup for the final 4 rounds of the championship. They have their own cup, but in the overall Drivers' Championship, this will be Bryce just needling his way a little bit closer to the top 2, although Warren will open up his lead compared to CPEC, but Bryce will be closing. So the net difference will be that suddenly we have 3 drivers all equidistant from each other, rather than a top 2 trying to break away from the rest of the field. And Bryce could definitely be the one to watch as the second half of the season goes on. In the fact that our European circuits, the main difference between them and our American circuits, and this is something that could perhaps be applied across the board with regards to the continents, is the fact American circuits are just that little bit more power focused. European circuits are a little bit more technical by comparison. And that's not to be rude about American circuits. Indeed, if you want a technical test, go race at Watkins Glen, give the amount of speed you have to carry from quarter to quarter. But when we say technical test in Europe, it is really start, stop, and a lot of corners where essentially you've got to be nailing those exits for a short run to the next bend. You really are at the whim of your cornering abilities, whereas at Watkins Glen, it's about carrying speed. That's the technical test there. And you see that as well here at Sebring. The fact we do have some stop-start moments, such as the hairpin, whereas we have a lot of sweeping bends and straights. It's about being able to carry the speed onto them. But as we look back from your trio here, still together, and meanwhile, we do look to Matthew Morhardt. And well, for this man, it all started in grim fashion, but he's trying to get it back together before the race is all said and done. He's up to 11th place. He's still got a bit more work to do, chasing after CPEC, and gradually try to close that gap down, although he had a bit of a difficult previous lap, but that lap, an impressive one. It was the best part of the whole second quicker than CPEC. So if he can carry this on for the next, what will be 13 minutes of racing, well, we do the quick mental mathematics, with each lap being 2 minutes in length approximately. Well, that means we have got a grand total of another 7 including this one, and Morhardt could be there onto the back end of the top 10 going on to the final lap. So that's the rate of closure he needs to maintain. Meanwhile, Eric Lagai has been caught up to by Shahi Zaher. Zaher's really closed that gap down, and was we right aboard the dashboard here of your privateer from Sri Lanka. Well, I get the feeling right now the privateer from Arrive and Drive Racing, that definitive green livery, going on through the right hander there of turn number 13. So here now, he's got close. In fact, look, guys, letting the place go. Well, I would never have thought that was going to happen. I wonder if Lagai is potentially having to save fuel. I think they may have made a mistake in the pit lane for the Privateer's outfit, because that was completely unexpected. Shahi Zaher at this point being allowed to take that third place back. The only other thing I can think of is that perhaps the guy right now does not want to fight Zaher. He would rather follow the BMW driver, so that way they don't bring Chad Henson into play for what will be the last few laps, and then the guy would go back on the attack. But it's a bit of an odd way of doing it. If so, I wouldn't normally see you see the place to essentially guarantee that you can have a chance of fighting for that same place later on. There's got to be some reason for this, and I say the only thing I can imagine is that the guy may be having to save some fuel. Perhaps he's worried that he's not going to have enough fuel to get to the race. I mean, look at the way he's gluing himself to the back of Zaher's car. Now, if you're driving like that, it's either one or two things. Either you're getting ready to attack, alternatively, you've got an issue with the car and you're trying to pick up speed, as he does lose a whole half a second coming into Gender B and Bend. Will he be able to get it back? With the dirty air, there will definitely have been a factor coming through the fast left-hander, but this is not the way we expect it to go for the guy, and he's let the place go for now. And Zaher's going to try and bolt away. Chad Henson is now in a second as a result. So this is bringing the trio back together. And Matt Best, well, he's currently lapping the best part of what is almost 2 seconds faster based on the previous lap. So Best at this point may still yet have a role to play in this. Even though the fact he did have a drive-through penalty, well, Best is getting himself back into the mix. And it's crazy to think right now that Best has come all the way back forward, and yet he still may have a chance of finishing on the podium here. Julian Jones has checked out. As we see Jones there, as the camera swivels quickly to catch up with him, and indeed our cameraman just being as quick as the EcoBoost machine, and the number 69 car right now being match paced by Henson and Best, but he's not in a bit of a worry situation, because for Henson and Best to get to him, they've still got to clear Zaher and Lagai, and that's going to lead to plenty of fighting. But meanwhile, here comes Donald Seepet looking for a move on Tom Bryce. So he's caught back up to Bryce over the last couple of laps. Bryce under a bit of pressure now as they make the way through Collier. And well, the 272 driver getting ready for Tao Bend once again. But what can Bryce do here to hold on? It does seem as though, for all the pace he's been able to extract earlier on, he's now been caught up to and getting ready to come down in towards Bishop Bend. Well, that BMW really has come alive. But I think Stepex really found the key to unlocking the pace in the second stint in that BMW. I think he's had a very gradual start to the stint, and now he's saved up all the pace for towards the end of it. So he's had to drive a bit backwards with regards to this second stint, whereas don't attack early, attack late. And he's timed it well with 10 minutes to go as they make their way down the Allman Straight. And this is where the BMW will gradually catch up. Now 2 attempts at the gap here as they get ready to head into sunset. Will he look for it this time? I think he's going to go for it. He does. He goes all in there at last possible moment. But CPEC, to be fair, says risk it all for the reward. But in the end, Bryce will hold it around the outside for now. But this will only add to the momentum that CPEC's going to have coming off the final corner and in towards Gender B and and Bend. Onto that 26 they go for themselves. And see about 2.5 tenths behind here as they come into the fast left-hander. And, well, as they come through the corner, will there be a move? The answer is no, not quite so. But meanwhile, whilst they're getting ready to battle, he's a hair out to pass there at Lagai. Lagai's right back on his rear once again. But look at Chad Henson in the rear of the picture. Henson's slowed up. Best is there as well. And suddenly we have a quartet fighting over the final podium spot in pro and overall. Well, this was definitely not on the cards to see them catch up so quickly. But it does seem as though that Eric Lagai, after giving up the place, is now back with them. The only other thing I can imagine is that Eric Lagai perhaps thinks he caused contact with Shahi Zahair at the start of the race going into Gender B and Ben and wanted to give the place back out of respect. Whereas so, it's very gentlemanly. The replay footage we had didn't seem to suggest they made contact, but of course, a driver at the time, when you've got all the bumps in the road, a little bit of bump in the concrete can also feel as though it's a bump between you and another car, and particularly when they were side by side through the corner. We won't be getting a replay of that again today. Well, I think Eric Lagai there doing the best he can to be the ultimate gentleman driver, which is absolutely fair. The only problem is by doing so, he has now actually put himself into a risk of losing another 2 places, and he's also got to try and fight his way past the BMW that's not going to be easy to pass. As we ride on board with Matt Best for a brief moment, the Section Speed Sim Racing driver in the very colourful liveried machine. Well, he's at the back of the group here, and now here comes Chad Henson looking for a move on the inside. He goes for one, he goes for 2, and as our camera cuts out for a brief moment there, well, we're not going to lose this battle, as that's going to be Henson up the inside of Eric Lagai. I think he thought he could get both of them, and then Shahi Zahair decided to outbrake everybody into the sunset, and well, Henson takes one. Lagai just tucks in behind. I think Lagai playing the bigger picture here, which is let them all fight, get involved later on as he looks around the outside there, but that's more to put Henson under pressure and say to number the 93 driver will go on, keep pushing, and Best right now queuing up behind Lagai. The Recti machine having to go defensive a little bit, and Henson also going defensive there, and I think Shahi Zahair is going to be given a bit of a reprieve. It's going to work out in his favour, at least for now. But in the battle between Tom Bryce and Donald Sepek, they're still close together as they come in towards Gender B and Bend. And the 216 driver within 2 tenths on entry, but 4 tenths on exit. That's the Concertina and the actual fly of the corners. No potential move, at least for now. But Henson going defensive. There's Best up the inside of the guy. They come in towards the hairpin. And Matt Best getting all in. Oh, there's contact between the two. And they get hooked on each other. And Best goes to the grass. And the guy then gets it stopped. But Best to the barrier. And that might all be it again for Matt Best after all that recovery drive. The man just cannot get a break today. And it's all broken down in the final 7 minutes of the race. And well, I think of innocent contact there between the two drivers. We'll get a replay of that very shortly, but what it does do is promote Jermaine Warren up another place at least. So Warren now definitely picking up even more points here, and as Matt Best has towed to pit lane due to damage, well, unfortunately it's all gone wrong. But meanwhile, well, Shahi Zahair battling with Chad Henson, and now Henson coming back, looking around the outside of Bishop to get inside of turn 15, but on the brake, so you've got to brake very early for turn 15 on the inside, but in the end, Zahair gives him the space to operate, and now 2 wide coming all the way into Lamont Bend. Henson defends the inside. Zahair goes the switchback, lovely line off the corner. We jump on board with your number 12, as you can see how close he's glued to the back of the Golf Livery Tribute machine, and coming down towards what will be the next braking zone at sunset. Well, Henson's never given up that inside line. Zahair's going to go all the way round to make this happen. He's going to try it. Will he get it done? You can see the headlights there of Henson and a little bit of his car on the right of your picture. So in the end, Henson just defended, crawling through the corner. And well, these two now have got the right to battle, given the fact they've got 4.5 seconds between them and Eric Lagai. The guy you can see in the rear of the picture of a damaged car as well. That's not going to help him. But meanwhile, Sepek versus Bryce. It's going to be Sepek on the inside in towards sunset, Bryce on the outside. This is a second in Pro-Am with Matthew Morhardt queuing up behind, and Morhardt's going to thread the needle in here. He's going to get on the inside of Bryce, and whatever aspirations Bryce had to try and come back as Sepek in the run towards Gender B and Bend, those are going to be sent to the dirt, because now Matthew Morhardt's going to put himself in as a filler in the Pro-Am sandwich, and we're coming down towards the opening bend. We're now 3 laps to go for these two. In fact, it may be 4 laps to go, given the fact that we've still got more time on the cars, while the leader being halfway around the lap already. Well, Donald Sepek in the end will be taking that second place in the Pro-Am class, and I don't think Bryce is going to be given the chance to respond here, but Matthew Morhardt will try and find his way past Sepek. But now, can your BMW driver find a way to essentially let the pro driver go without losing time, unless he thinks he can keep Morhardt behind, which he is allowed to do, of course. Remember, they are all battling for overall points. It's the overall points they take into the class standings first and foremost. But as we can see, Morhardt thinks about it, but decides not to send it that time. But Donald Sepek may be getting ready to put on a defence at this point, given they've got this lap plus a couple more to go. Indeed, it's very much on the balance right now between them. But speaking of being on the balance, of course, we did have that big moment for Matt Best and Eric Lagai only moments ago. let's take a look back at what exactly happened when they did have contact. So this was the guy and Best coming on down, and of course this was all part of the big battle as we saw Eric the guy having to look around the outside Chad Henson, but Best was there, and as they came off the corner, a little bit of oversteer from both Porsches, and unfortunately it did look as though Eric the guy just coming into the rear quarter panel of Best's car, an innocent mistake based on that camera angle, but again a bit of a contentious one, but we'll let the cameras talk about that one later when it comes to the steward's room. Meanwhile, we had this brilliant counter-attack from Chad Henson in the end. He took his time to build up to go on the move versus Shahi Zaher, who had a little bit of an oversteer moment coming out of Tower Bend. So in the end, that's what really opened up the door. We didn't catch that initially, but Zaher coming off at turn 13, the rear came loose, lost him a couple of miles an hour, and then Henson said, right, it's all or nothing now, I'm going for this, much like Zaher went for it earlier on, and Henson on the inside there and got the move done, come the exit Le Mans Bend, and went defensive all the way down to Sunset. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live racing. And coming on back, well, 3.5 minutes left, not long left now, and your race leader of Ryan Otis still just bolting away here, pumping out lap after lap. Nobody seems to be able to touch him, and Matthew Morhardt, the inside of Donald Seebeck there, gets it wrong, coming back in, oh my good lord, and well now, as he just avoids the barrier by the looks of things, well, Donald Seebeck, he runs wide, can he keep Bryce behind? Bryce has got the mother of all opportunities, and Bryce does. Bryce takes back second place in the prime class. You could not make it up in the end, and well, I think there was no contact between Seebeck and what was Morhardt. I think then Morhardt just run him slightly wide, and Don Seebeck being caught out there as he rejoined at a moment of his own. My goodness, well that was all over the place, and well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a quick replay back of that because that was absolute chaos, but somehow they made sense of it all, and here's a replay to explain. So this was coming through Genderby and Bend, and we could see Matthew Morhardt on the attack. Don Seebeck in the end put the car on the outside to let Morhardt take the inside line, went on the brakes, but went a bit deep, locked up the front left. No contact, but Seebeck was run out of road. Morhardt then fell off the curb at turn 4 and hit the barrier, but as we did see, Don Seebeck took the apex there too tightly at turn number 5, hit the curb, it caused him to understeer out, and Tom Bryce in the end just simply said, well, if you're going to have chaos, I'm going to have calm instead. Thank you very much. And it's back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. As we do come on back, well, definitely no malice meant there by Matthew Morhardt at all, but just simply getting a bit too late on the brakes. And now, with that lock-up there, definitely creating a bit of a difference. We've still got this fight going on because Seebeck's coming back once again. Bryce is not safe at the moment. Don Seebeck here's going to look around the outside. Well, that BMW's got so much speed on the straight, but going very wide there. He's going to try and slingshot his way off the Sunset, try and get a really good exit line, build up all the speed. And Bryce there taking a very tight exit line initially. I think wondering when was Seebeck going to come back at him. And the answer to that question was, not quite initially, but now down towards Genderby and Bend. He's offered him an opportunity, and here comes Seebeck on the inside. Can he get the move done? Or Bryce is going to try and hold it all the way around the outside up towards turn number 3. Seebeck's got the inside open to him now. Can he make the move stick? Can he not make it into a lockup here? And the answer is going to be yes, he can. Too wide in. It's going to be too wide all the way through turns 3, 4 and 5. Bryce on the outside. He's going to go a little bit late on the brakes. Seebeck gives him the space to cooperate, and Bryce doing a brilliant job to make sure he stays ahead for now. Great defensive driving there. Great respectful driving from both drivers, and as they come down towards the hairpin right now, Donald Seebeck here is running out of time because our leader Ryan Otis has got a minute to go, so he's going to go on to lap number 31, and meanwhile Tom Bryce goes very deep. That might be the mistake that seals the deal as they come up through in towards Fangio Bend, and Donald Seebeck right now has just got to be full throttle all the way. And Bryce will do what he can to come back here, but I don't think Bryce is going to have a response coming up into Cunningham Bend unless he lunges on the inside. And in the end, it's a mistake at the hairpin that finally sees Donald Seebeck take that second place back in the prime class. My goodness, it's been evident flying. It's been back and forth. And Bryce right now will hope he's just got one more shot at this. They've got this lap plus one more, but we'll have to wait and see whether Bryce can get close again because the gap's up to 4 tenths already. And Seebeck right now is going to be in a hurry to make sure that no more opportunities are presented. But speaking of presenting opportunities, Chad Henson right now a second clear almost to Shahi Zaher. He's not going to open up the door for third place anytime soon if he can help it. And Zaher at this point I think will be gutted not to be on the podium given the pace he's brought to the table in that BMW. But the flip side of the coin is they've had a really good scrap, these two. Coming on, meanwhile, we do look to Ryan Otis.
who leads right now by the best part of 40 seconds over Julian Jones. He really has been in a class of his own, and he is halfway through this final lap. We will go 31 laps the distance today, ladies and gentlemen, and right now this feature race has kept us entertained. It's been keeping us on our toes all the way through. Indeed, there's never really been a quiet moment in this one, and when it has gone quiet, it's been because we've had a little bit of a strategic interlude to build us up to even more battling. But that's what the middle of the pack racing league is all about, particularly in this GTE League, and all four races in the US Cup have all had their own narratives. They all had their own stories, but as Jermaine Warren carries on, right now it's definitely looking as though for Warren, this is going to be a crown in the Prime class that's well and truly earned, with none other than what will be a Pro and win to seal the deal in class. Oh, hold up a second, not quite. He's had a spin on the final lap of the hairpin. Well, how much of a gap does he have to Donald Seepek? The answer is 16 seconds. That may just keep him safe, but as Warren gets it back together, meanwhile, no spins. It's all been about the win, because of Ryan Otis, he may have started not quite on pole, but he's going to get the job done and takes victory here today by what a margin here. 40 seconds, he's winner overall in Pro, and nobody could touch this man. Once he got into lead, he never let it go. Meanwhile, we've got a bit of time before Julian Jones gets to the scene, but we look to Jermaine Warren for a brief moment. He's chasing after Logsdon, has been promoted to 6th, and in fact that promotion to 6th may be the thing that seals the deal for James Logsdon in becoming our US Cup winner in the Pro class. We'll have to wait and find out, as the maths will need to be done, but Jermaine Warren right now still safe from Donald Seepek. But as we look to Julian Jones, we're coming on through the final quarter. The Ford EcoBoost machine, the GT, has done a brilliant job today in the hands of Julian Jones, and Jones will come home the runner-up. Strategy was key, and he got it all done in the pit stops there to make sure he finished second, and it will then be a further 9 seconds back to Chad Henson, who rounds off the overall on the Pro podium there. Brilliant drive from the privateer for Turbo Rennsport, and then Shahi Zahair will be just off the podium in full place for their exciting battle all the way to the end. Eric Laguy lost out at the close, finishing 5th after his late contact with Matt Best, and then it will be 12 seconds back before we do get to James Logsdon, who comes on home in 6th place. But that will be the result that sees him take the US Cup crown, and Jermaine Warren, a prime winner in 7th place. A late spin, always spoiling a perfect drive, and the Corvette driver there will be your prime US Cup champion ahead of Donald Seepek, who brings on home 2nd place in the prime class. Well done to him for 8th overall in his brilliant battle with Tom Bryce, and Bryce in the end 3rd on the prime podium, just ahead of Matthew Morhardt, will come on home in 10th place, and then we will see Glenn Bratton finishing a lap down in 11th. Well, not in fact a lap down, right at the back end of the lead lap, we do apologise, but he will take home 11th place there, 4th in the prime class, as we also did see laps down for Matt Best, Gabriel Farrow there finishes, and unfortunately a retirement for Taylor Bookout. But as Julian Jones enjoys their ripping up the grass, and I do believe that's on the exit of turn number 3 and the runoff area there, where he's celebrating a brilliant drive to 2nd place. That will feel like a win to him, understandably, given how he was able to get it done. With that, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers do cool them down, we look to the scenic view, and with it, your race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after an incredible 60 minutes of racing in round number 4 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League, GTE League for 2026, brought to you on the EcoBoost platform that is iRacing, well, none other than Ryan Otis taking victory at Sebring International Raceway, and what a win today. 41 seconds he took the victory ahead of Julian Jones. Jones, to be fair, got everything right as the race went on, stayed behind in the battle for 2nd place in the leading quartet, and saved all the fuel, and then pumped in the laps when he needed to most by going the extra lap, and got the job done. Chad Henson was a further 9 seconds behind, and then he enjoyed an absolutely brilliant race-long battle for the 3rd place spot with Shahi Zahair and El Laguy, but only one driver could take it, and it was Henson in the end who did so, and then we saw the BMW of Shahi Zahair finishing 4th, the Schlanken driver just missing out there with an exciting battle. Thought he got the move done with that brave move around the outside at Cunningham Bend on Henson, but Henson came back, giving him just an equal move after a tiny mistake for Zahair coming out of Tower Bend really opened up the opportunity. Eric Laguy, 5th in this one, and unfortunately for him, what could have been a podium gradually got eroded away, although it did look as though he had to give up a place to save some fuel versus Zahair, but then it was, of course, the contact between himself and Matt Best that really spoiled the deal, and James Logsdon there were drive-through penalty, relegated down the order, but did recover to 6th, and the Team Bearpoke driver will know that today was not his day as far as a single race result was concerned. Jermaine Warren, prime winner there, taking 3 bonus points and 7th place overall. And the MOP racing driver doing things in style in the Corvette. His first stint was all about strategy and conserving his tyres and pace, but the second stint was all about running away with the win in the race. Donald Cepek took 2nd place in the prime class there for Team Bear Pope with a race-long battle with Tom Bryce, and it all came down to slender margins, and in the end Bryce didn't quite have the response right at the end. And then we did see from the 3rd place prime finisher taking home the last bonus points of the class, it was Matthew Morhardt there in 10th place with his early instant cost him a chance. He definitely had the pace to potentially be on the podium overall in this one, but sadly an early instant spoiled his chance of that entirely. Glenn Bratton, classified as a lap down there, as shown, the privateer finishing 4th in the prime class, and all of our primes making it to the end. He had a bit of a quiet race in 11th place, and then Matt Best unfortunately retired with only what was 4 laps to go to the finish after his contact with Eric Laguy, and unfortunately the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver just not having a happy end to the first half of the season. Gabriel Ferreira, he stayed in it to win it all the way, despite the open lap seeing him go to the barrier at Genderby and Bend, but indeed the American driver there in his Corvette not giving up, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from him in the rounds ahead. And Taylor Bookout, sadly, our only retirement from the race early on. It all went wrong for the Team Bear Pope driver, and it'll be a minimal point scored for him today. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely one that was full of huge moments. That's exactly what Sebring delivers, and a brilliant way to wrap up our US Cup. But speaking of wrapping up, well, how exactly do the standings stand after 4 rounds of racing? And these are the standings, of course, ladies and gentlemen, after all stewarding has been completed. And that's why we have delayed this broadcast by a week, and we will be bringing the broadcast a week and a half after each round now, so we can keep you up to speed with all the standings. And as we can see, after 4 rounds and after our trip to none other than not quite Road America, but to Sebring International Raceway, James Logsdon taking victory in the US Cup in the Pro Class, because whilst he may not have taken the big score from today with only 6 plays, it was enough to keep him safely ahead and bring on home the Pro Crown ahead of Chad Henson, who in the end was only able to close the gap down to 6 points. Shahid Zahir taking 3rd there, coming into the second half of the season ahead of Taylor Bookout, who'd lost out quite tragically, and Julian Jones with that big score of 2nd place moving into 5th. Matt Best 6th, 2 points behind him, and a further 3 points to Gabriel Ferrero, and Eric Laguy now equal points for Ferrero, but based on result count back just behind, and then Ryan Otis with a dominant win today, leaping his way into 9th place. Matthew Morhardt in 10th now, ahead of Blake Phillips, and then Jason Landry, Edwin Offred, and David Adie completing the pro standings on the left-hand side of your picture, and on the right-hand side, well, with that win, Jermaine Warren taking on home, just a few extra points there, and able to creep ahead of Donald Cepek by a single point come the end of the Pro-Am US Cup. Tom Bryce, a further 10 points behind, 9 still more work to be done, but knows he's in the fight for the championship crown overall come the end of the season, and Glenn Bratton there in 4th place on 134 points, comfortably clear of Mark Senegal, who wasn't here today. Roger Ganesh is 6th ahead of Carl Peterson, and Bill Costa completes the run after round number 4 in the Pro-Am class by being in 8th place on 55 points. So that does mean, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we must give a huge congratulations to our US Cup winners, and they are, just to remind you, our number 42 driver of James Logsdon for Team Bear Pope in the Pro class, and in the Prime class, the 214 of Jermaine Warren for Middle of the Pack Racing. Congratulations to both of them, and we look forward to seeing whether they can take both cups come the end of the season, because the Euro Cup is coming up next, and of course see whether they can take the grand prize of what will be the overall Drivers' Championship as well, over all 8 rounds, not just 4 rounds apiece. But the pressure will be on them, and they'll know they've definitely now got the favourite status, and the pressure with that comes going into the second half of the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time, unfortunately, for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching today, and if you do want to know more about the absolutely epic EcoBoost community, sorry, let me try that again. If you do want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, why not check out our official Discord? If you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, I absolutely love clean and what is fun racing, and I do love a good old bit of GTE racing as well, or indeed a variety of racing. We do host different series throughout the year, and we always make sure to pick different car classes, because we always like something a little bit different and off the beaten track in the Middle of the Pack Racing League. All that and more, we definitely recommend you join our official Discord. Invite link available on screen. You won't find a cleaner and more respectful and friendly sim racing community, at least based on the North American continent, and we are open to everybody, whether you're an esports professional all the way through to, a rookie driver,
And indeed, we'd love to have you on the grid. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on our official Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Racing. That way you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements and all things EcoBoost from the Middle of the Pack Racing League. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, it's now time for us to look ahead because we completed the first half of our season. The US Cup is complete, and next time out, we make our way to Spain to kick off the Euro Cup, and it begins at a circuit that will definitely feel very balanced and very familiar to all racers around the globe, because it will be the ultimate testing circuit, the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. And whilst the racing next time out will occur on what will be only in a few days' time on the 22nd of April, we invite you to come join us as if it were live on Saturday, the 2nd of May, 2026, when we pick up the story once again and see who exactly is going to set the pace in the Euro Cup. But at least in the US Cup, it has been James Logsdon in Pro and Jermaine Warren in Pro-Am who have set the pace over the first 4 rounds of the season, but not without excitement, not without epic battles, and that surely is going to continue on the shores of the European continent. So come tune in next time as if it were live to see how the story progresses. But until then, we have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.